More than the queen of the miniseries and the star of TV's family-friendly hit, Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, she's an accomplished artist, a mother of 4, and a strong advocate for women's health issues. Hi, I'm Ernie Manouse. Coming up on InnerVIEWS, our conversation with Golden Globe and Emmy Award-winning actress Jane Seymour. Do you ever get totally used to the idea of being a celebrity?
That's always such a strange question because I don't think of myself as a celebrity. I mean, I'm just a me, I'm me whether I'm acting or I'm talking to you or I'm, doing the dishes and trying to get the kids off to school. I'm just me. But you sort of get used to people knowing who you are and knowing you just, you don't have the privacy that you used to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of get used to that.
Does that interfere in some way with the work, with what you want to be doing? Does the celebrity ever halt it?
Not for me, no. No, first of all, I'm very focused. And I think anyone who's an artist or an actor, you have to be really focused because there's always all that stuff going on all around. And the only way you can act is to put yourself, like a laser beam, like right in that moment.
Yeah.
And you have to, whenever you do a love scene, for example, there's, 200 people staring at you, holding things, trying to make sure that you have to have focus. So no, it doesn't really. And I think if you let it, then you're not on your game.
Yeah. Did you always want to do this?
I wanted to be a classical ballerina. No, I did not want to be an actress or any of the other things. No. Classical ballerina, that was it.
Was it the draw of the attention of folks? Because from ballet, you did go into this business.
Yes.
Was there some of that draw, or was it just about the art of dancing?
It has always been about the art. I come from England. That's, people are not into being celebrities there. I mean, first of all, you don't really become a celebrity in England. It's just not the done thing. England has this sort of class system. You are who you are, you're born where you are, and you stay there. And that's it. And in England, you don't really become a star. You're a working actor if you're lucky, or a working dancer, or a working singer. It's a whole other thing than America. American actors, American people that I see, it's about the celebrity.
Right.
It's probably changed in England now. I mean, especially with all these reality shows, everyone wants to be a celebrated person. But it's not where I started at all. I never imagined for a minute that my name would ever be anything other than, somewhere in the program if I was lucky.
Really? Mm. Talk about the dancing.
Well, when I was born, I had flat feet and a speech impediment. I did.
And then you went to dancing and acting.
And my mother said I was knocking over all the pots and pans in the kitchen because I just kept dancing everywhere. So she sent me to ballet classes where I learned not to have flat feet and became obsessed with it to the degree that by the time I was 13, I was insisting to my parents that life would be over unless they let me go to the Royal Ballet School or to a professional ballet school. We had no money. My father had answered an ad in the British Medical Journal to switch doctors' daughters, gynecologist daughters, with a Hungarian doctor. So I was sent off to Hungary when it was an Iron Curtain country. I went there, and while I was cavorting around on the beach in Lake Balaton, this woman came up to me and offered me a place at the Hungarian State Ballet School. My parents came out, rescued me immediately, and said, well, okay, you can go to ballet school in England if that's what you really want to do. And I went to a great ballet school that was not just ballet, it was theatre, it was all the theatre arts, called the Arts Educational Trust. Studied there, had to study acting, singing, millions of other things. Had an injury, became an actress by default.
Yeah. How important is movement then to you?
Oh, movement is key. It's really important to me. And I think, a lot of people have said to me that I do really well in period pieces. And I think it's because of my ballet background. I know how to stand up straight and how to use a fan and how to curtsy. I can do all those minuets and dances and waltzes. I can't tell you how many times I've danced. Every time I dance with a male actor from this country, they think they have 3 feet. And they do. They somehow manage to tread on 2 of mine at the same time. But it's astounding. If I do a period piece, the women have no idea how to do needlepoint or sew or do any of those things that women from early days did. So movement, riding horses, even driving, antique vehicles. I mean, these are things that I learned how to do and have become very handy. And I always tell people who are trying to be actors, I said, do a bit of the gym, certainly study, but, do a lot of physical stuff, sword fighting, dancing, movement, mime. I mean, you just can't get enough of it.
Now, I heard somewhere or read somewhere that underneath your Dr. Quinn outfit, you were doing your exercises too. True?
Well, yes, you stand around there, and, I didn't have time to go to the gym. And, I mean, changing out of all that stuff and putting on gym clothes wasn't going to happen, especially after they spend 2 hours, fixing my hair and makeup. So I found those elastic bands, and I put them on around my legs, and, I just sort of kind of go from side to side, up and down, It was quite funny. They all knew what I was doing.
When you hurt yourself when you were dancing and they said, that's it, dancing is gone, how did you deal with that at that point in your life? You were 17?
Yeah.
I remember.
I was devastated because I really wanted to be a ballerina, but I also knew I could sing and I could act. And because I was in a school where I was already doing those other classes, I segued into the other area. And I fully thought that maybe I wouldn't be a classical dancer, but I'd be a musical comedy dancer. And that's what I did. So my first jobs, I was a dancer who sang and was given one line.
Yeah.
And always made understudy to the leading lady. And so that's how I got into acting.
Yeah.
And I was a much better actress than I was a dancer. I mean, trust me, the greatest thing that ever happened was that injury. I bless that injury now. It's just... it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
At the time, though, I mean, I'm sure you didn't see it that way. And I think from that, what do you learn to tell people when they find disappointment in their life? How do you get through to folks about that?
Well, first of all, I tell folks that there will always be disappointment in your life. And life never goes the way you plan it. And that's the fun part of life, is you can't plan it. You put all the effort in. You put as much planning in as possible. And then you have to turn it over and see what happens. I kind of think of life like a giant wave. It grows, it swells, it crests. The wind takes it in this sort of spectacular moment, and then it crashes magnificently. And it doesn't stop. It doesn't crash and stop and look back at itself. It crashes and is immediately, going back into being the next wave. And I always feel like life is like that. You're always in motion. You're always in movement. And as you go through that process, you're taking with you what you learned from before, and you're taking it on to the next one. So whatever you become next would never have happened had you not gone through what happened before. So I always tell people that I call it a remarkable change. I even wrote a book about it called Remarkable Changes, about how you take life's challenges, and once you manage to process them and you press on through them, if you're open enough to it, there are opportunities that you could never have imagined.
Do you plan them, though, or do you just ride the wave?
I ride the wave, and when things are pretty bad, instead of stopping and just going, it isn't fair, why me, it's all over, I take a deep breath and I go, okay, well, what can I do? Well, I'm a mother, so I've got to feed my kids, make sure they're safe, make sure they're happy. I do that. Then I figure, what else do I know how to do? Well, I know how to paint, I know how to design, I know how to communicate, I can write, I can speak. I could maybe come up with my own movie. Maybe I could write a story that someone will make. And so that's what I do. I don't sit back and just say ageism in Hollywood stinks, or, why don't they hire me because of this, that, and the other. I just keep looking at it pragmatically, and I just say, okay, so it's reality television now. Okay, well, do I really want to do that? No. I keep asking my kids to do that. They want to follow my kids around. They will say no. So instead, my idea of reality television is, guess what? Documentaries. So I just made a documentary. I'm going to D.C. tomorrow. I've just done a voiceover on a major documentary about the world's water crises. I'm here in Houston talking about the problems with heart disease, specifically with women. I feel, okay, let's get into reality. Let's be real. Let's do something that actually matters. I don't need to be seen eating scorpions. Right. I don't think.
But I'm sure people would tune in for it.
Well, they probably would. But, I'd rather go to Africa with the Red Cross and show people how 14 million children have been vaccinated in a week, by all these agencies for the measles. I mean, that's more interesting to me.
Some people have credited you with creating family television in the 90s when Dr. Quinn came along, that was asking people to say, hey, there's a place on television in prime time for families to come together and watch TV. Where did that whole genesis come from?
Well, I would like to say that I created Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, but I didn't. I was pretty much bankrupt, although I never filed. My marriage ended. I was in deep, deep debt. I called my agent and I said, I need to work yesterday. And he told all the, all the networks that I would do anything. And anything turned out to be this little thing called Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. I was supposed to be doing a sitcom for Paramount at the time, but I had to make a decision on this right away. I had to sign for 5 years, even though they told me, all of them told me, it'll never make it as a series because it's a woman in the lead. That doesn't work. It's family. That doesn't work. It's a Western. That definitely doesn't work. It's a medical show. That definitely doesn't work. It has dogs, animals, and things. That definitely doesn't work. And it's a period piece, so forget about it. So I said, okay. So I signed on the dotted line. Even the network didn't believe in it, and suddenly it became this huge hit. And then after that, they went, oh, well, family shows, let's put more family shows on. So they put Touched by an Angel, Seventh Heaven, all of those things. And then after 7 years, they just arbitrarily, when we were at the top of our game, they just cut us off and just said goodbye.
Is that still hard in your career when those moments happen? You talk about being able to ride the wave and understand how life goes. But when you get that, when you're successful at something and it's going well, and I assume you enjoy it, and all of a sudden they say, okay, done.
I was perplexed because I thought, gosh, we're pretty good and everyone's watching us. And then, of course, the networks went nuts when all the public, unheard of apparently in the history of television, they protested about this thing. I immediately realized that I had time to do other things, and I proceeded to do them. So I designed clothes for a company. I'm now designing home furnishings and children's clothing for a Saks Incorporated group. My paintings, I started having art shows all over the country, even a museum show. I got into public speaking. I did a number of movies that I now had time to do. I produced movies. It was interesting. I suddenly had time to do a lot of things that I had an interest in that I hadn't had time to do. So although at the time it was very disappointing and kind of shocking because I thought we had at least another season in us, it was also a really, really good thing. I mean, it gave me time to do a lot of other things I wanted to do.
Yeah. How do you decide what you spend your time on? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people coming to you saying, help us with this and help us with that. How do you decide which ones get your energy?
I'm asked every day to put my name on everything you can possibly imagine, and I fervently say no. I will never put my name on something that I'm not absolutely personally involved in and that I don't 100% believe. That means that no product goes out that I haven't already, done more research than you can possibly imagine on. If I put my name on a product, I've got clauses up the wazoo that, there aren't, children and, terrible circumstances these people are working in. When it comes to charities, I want to be hands-on, and I am. For example, the whole issue with women's heart health. I have high blood pressure. I deal with it. Both my parents had heart disease. My father died from it. Both my in-laws died from heart disease. I see it everywhere I go. I go all over America. I speak everywhere. I see so many people obese, so many people struggling with type 2 diabetes that they don't even know. And I see young kids smoking cigarettes and taking birth control. And I know that they're causing themselves to die way younger than they need to. Yeah. I've also, I had a near-death experience where I actually left my body and saw my body being resuscitated. And I think once something like that happens in your life, you don't have time for nonsense. There's no time for relationships with people that are kind of nonsense or don't make sense. There's no time for doing anything that doesn't seem to matter. So when you say, how do I find time for things? My family is first. I take care of my health to the best of my ability because I know how close I came to not being here. I decided when I got back into my body that I was going to do everything I could to help other people because I think that's the only way you heal yourself. I realized was in this extraordinary position that people actually listened to me for whatever reason, and that if I was going to be listened to, I wouldn't speak unless I felt I had something that was worth saying. And so I try to divvy up my time between things I have a passion for, like acting and my art, and public speaking on subjects that I care about, and trying to push through initiatives through government and wherever that I think are important, like foster care, mentoring, which is very important to me, child abuse issues, very important to me, the water crisis is very important to me. giving children an education in the arts, which has been taken out of schools, very important to me. So those are things that I really dedicate a lot of time to.
It's interesting. I keep noticing you say, and I've heard other folks in your position say similar things, and they mention their love of art and their work within art outside of just performing arts. And I'm wondering, do you think that there's some connection between the two? An artistic person is an artistic person in different mediums, or why do you think it exists?
I think it's the same creature. I mean, put me in front of a computer, or give me a game of chess, or show me a math problem, even for my third grade kids, and I am just lost. I mean, strategy, manipulation.
So you don't want to do the math portion of this interview,
type.
Huh?
I can't even type. I'm just so pathetic. I probably could do it, but it's just that part of my brain doesn't work. But tell me that you're looking for images that will conjure up this, that, and the other. I'm out there. I've got my paints out. I love the challenge. Coming up with these greetings cards I just did for the heart health thing. I did a woman in red on the beach with a big red hat with the turbulent crashing waves. I used myself as a model. I do red tulips, that bloom and wilt. I did a sort of classic red rose and a sort of whimsical thing. I mean, I love to paint. I love to create. I don't want to be at the mercy of people who say, well, she's hot this week, or she isn't this week, or whatever, we've used her too much, or, well, she's not right for this part. I'm not going to sit around waiting. I mean, heck no. I've got plenty of things that I can do in the meantime.
When did you know you could be an artist? When did you know that would be received by other people in a positive way? Or does that even matter to you?
Doesn't matter. Isn't that weird? You mean painting?
Yeah.
Absolutely does not matter. It doesn't matter. I enjoy the act of painting. In fact, the problem I have is selling the darn things. I don't want to. Someone says, well, I'll pay this much money. I go, no, it's mine. And then my husband points out there are only so many walls in our house that we can hang these things. And then I have a point of keeping the names and addresses of these people and asking them if it's okay if I'm really missing this piece, could I borrow it back for a special occasion or a retrospective exhibition or something. But I'm getting used to that now. And of course the Chiclet imaging is amazing. So now I can actually make a reproduction that I'm happy with if I want to. But no, it's I never paint a painting hoping someone's going to like it. And actually, when I do a painting, I can always see a million things wrong with it. Mm-hmm. And the paintings I think are really good are never the ones people buy. Huh. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
The ones that I think are like yucky, invariably those are the first to be sold. I mean, my art dealer says, I looked at some paintings the other day and I said, oh gosh, we can't show that. She said, sold. I said, what? Sold. And I went, okay. Well, obviously, the artist has no idea about the art, so I can't be the judge.
Yeah. Do you find that's the same in your acting work?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. I have no idea. When I think I've done a scene brilliantly and I was so emotional and I wept and I'm just raw with exhaustion afterwards and I just go, oh. And then the director says, okay, do another one right now. I go, what? Now, action. I go, and then you do it. And you haven't been able to think about it, and you do it, and you're sort of like flying on the seat of your pants, and then he goes, cut, and he goes, that was great.
Yeah.
How do I know? So I think you just have to trust who you're working with.
Do you feel more exposed, more open and real through your paintings when you show those to people, or through your acting?
You see, all of that would presuppose that I was looking at myself while I was doing it. You see, when I act, I put it out there, and I guess the adage my parents gave me, which was you can only ever do your own best, is the one I stick with. I go out there, and under the circumstances, I do the best that I can under those circumstances. That means that script, that actor, or those actors and actresses, that director, that day, those circumstances, weather-wise, whatever, and how they decide to edit it, put music to it, and sell it. I have absolutely no control over any of it. And art, I have a bit more control over because I decided to do it. I'm so way beyond worrying about people seeing, who I really am. I mean, who I really am is me, and people who get to know me for real get to know me for real, and what you see is pretty much what there is.
Yeah. It's just, and the reason I ask the question is that I'm much more comfortable with the things that I put out this way through television, but things that I do personally for me, I think are much more, in a sense, personal. And I'm much more uncomfortable if people are judging that work. This work they can judge because this is what I do and I'm out here. But the things that I do for me, I don't know that I like other people judging. And so when I think of your artwork, I wonder if you're painting for the joy of painting and loving it, do you really want someone else to give their opinion of it? Do you really want them to look at that work, or is that...
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The process of making that painting, that was the joy for me. That was it. At that day, when I painted that, something was happening.
Yeah.
And I was able to process whatever those feelings were, and somehow it ended up on a canvas or a piece of paper or something. And that was it. That was done. I mean, if you're talking about being judged, I think being judged as a mother or as a wife is far more intimate than being judged. I mean, I guess no one's actually said, oh, that stinks yet to my paintings. I haven't had that yet. But, you know, people who like serious abstraction, you know, mainly all in black, are not going to like my paintings, so that's fine.
Yeah. How do you get this kind of mindset to your children? Do they have the same approach to things, or is it something you learned and you try and impart to them as a parent? Because it seems such a healthy way to look at things.
I try to impart it to my kids. My kids, every one of them is completely different. My girls are off the charts brilliant. I mean, they are brain boxes extraordinaire. They've graduated from Vassar and Columbia University. They're also incredibly beautiful girls, and guess what? They've decided to act. Now, I've tried everything. I said, surely after this amazing education, you can find something better to do. One of them produces and films documentaries and writes and can produce films and does things like that. And my son is at film school, of course. The twins are in third grade, but they're already threatening to make movies. One's going to be a pro ball player of some sort. But one thing I do impart to them is that I say, you know, we're just not quitters in our family. When you start something, whatever happens, you finish it. And that you can only ever do your own best. So forget looking at what somebody next to you is doing, whether they're better or faster or prettier or more successful. It's kind of redundant. And every one of my kids paints for pleasure and does art. And that's also, in our family, nobody buys presents for one another. None of the kids buy presents for the adults. We either make, draw, or write, or paint something. And so I have the most beautiful collection of gifts from my kids over the years.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think... So I do sort of pass on the baton. This is how I grew up.
Yeah. Is there any part when you look back on your career that you wish you had done things differently? You talk about being satisfied with what things are, but in hindsight, I mean, there's talk you had gone up for a part in Thornbirds.
Yes.
And do you ever think, had I gotten that, the path would have changed? Had things been different? Do you look at it ever that way?
Well, I didn't get Thornbirds, partly because I left in my screen test some evidence of mother's milk on Richard Chamberlain's bare breast. So it made for a good story. But immediately after that, I was offered two major films for television, The Scarlet Pimpernel and I think the other one was Phantom of Budapest, or the Phantom of the Opera, basically. Right. And some people think The Scarlet Pimpernel was one of the great movies I ever made. So, no, I don't kind of look back and regret. I mean, I have learned some lessons. For example, I was married for quite a while there to an alcoholic. I now know how to, you know, identify an alcoholic, and I probably, had I had that kind of information, I probably wouldn't have gone there. But to say I wouldn't have married him, I mean, then I wouldn't have the beautiful children I have now, and I can't imagine having better children than the ones I had. So, you know, I kind of look at that as another learning experience.
Yeah. And before we run out of time, if we could talk a little bit more about the importance of women and their health right now. Well,
I think, you know, women are terrified of this big threat, breast cancer. And yes, it's a huge threat. And it's fantastic that women are self-empowered now, you know, to check themselves and to really address this issue. But 9 times more likely, women are going to die from heart disease than breast cancer. And when I heard about this, and I told other women this, they said, no, that can't possibly be true. But it's true. 1 in 3 women will die of heart disease. Wow. And a lot of times it's avoidable. It's avoidable, of course, with, you know, stepping up exercise, with nutrition, with, you know, losing weight if you're obese, obviously. But heart disease is a silent killer. And I know for myself, I had twins when I was 45, and I got absolutely ragingly high blood pressure, and I had absolutely no sign of it at all, other than when I took my blood pressure. And I was stunned. And, a lot of people are dying unnecessarily because they're not addressing heart disease. So, I was very excited. They invited me here to be here for the what is it, the digging, the...
Groundbreaking?
The groundbreaking, groundbreaking, yes.
The Clear Lake,
right? The Clear Lake Medical Center. And it was very interesting because I met their chief cardiovascular surgeon, who knows cardiovascular surgeon I know in England, who saved my father's life. I've actually watched open heart surgery. I've watched 3 or 4 open heart surgeries. Wow. So I've actually seen them in action. I know what goes on. I am hoping it's not going to be something I'm going to need to have, but it could very well be, because genetically I'm probably predisposed to it. And so I suppose the importance of coming out here and being part of this is to say to people, do something about it. Get checked up. Take it seriously. If you're a kid and you're smoking and you're taking the pill, realize you have 10 times more chance of getting, heart disease than anybody else. I mean, are you really serious about killing yourself when you're young? And telling people who are, just addicted to French fries and fast food and way too much alcohol and smoking. I mean, if you love someone, or you are loved, or you have kids that you want to see grow up, you have no choice. You've got to look after the vehicle you're in. And this is just a vehicle. Who you are is your spirit. This is a vehicle. You've got to take care of it, because no one else will. And so I feel pretty strongly about it. And I think, sometimes you just have to tell people like it is.
Well, at this moment, we are out of time. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
Jane Seymour. To order a transcript, call 866-652-3378 or send $6.95 to the address on your screen. Please include the name of the guest.